Well, I'm going to go ahead and start. My name is Claudia Green, and I am the Executive Director of English for New Bostonians. It's amazing to see you all here. Welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time with us this afternoon. I want a special welcome to Mayor Walsh and Superintendent Cassellius. And I want to welcome the ESL students from English for New Bostonians and other ESL programs all over the city, as I was saying, from Hyde Park to East Boston, and from Allston to Dorchester, really from all over. I know we have some students on from library programs, from state-funded programs, from E&B funded programs. So we're really happy to see you, and I'm so glad that you've been persisting through this time. I know that the folks on this call, your immigrant students who are your workers, your parents, your small business owners, and you're from over 50 countries, and you speak 25 different native languages. About half of you, we know, or more than half, are parents of school-age children, which is why we wanted the superintendent to be here. I know you have, your English skills are from beginner level to high level, and so that's why I'm going to try to ask everyone on this call to keep it slow and clear so that everyone can understand us. I want to welcome also the ESL teachers who have just been doing a stunning, amazing yeoman's work this spring, and welcome you to this call, and thank you for helping to put this together. And I want to thank the program directors as well, EMB board members, and other guests that are with us. And I know we have many representatives from the city, Yusuf Ivali, who is the director of the Mayor's Office for Immigrant Advancement. And we had Trin Nguyen is the director of the Office of Workforce Development, and she is with us, and several other offices. Actually, I know Mike Lynch is on from the Department of Information Technology, the city's IT department, who's been a great help to EMB this spring, and other members of the city and BPS. Welcome to this. Thank you for joining us. So, just a couple words on logistics. I just want to keep, most people are on mute, and just want to ask you to stay that way until we have some time at the end, but please feel free to use the chat. The mayor, I know, started us off with the chat function. Thank you. Just to know we're communicating. We are recording. We're on the cloud, and we're also on Facebook Live. If for any reason you don't want to be recorded, you can just shut your camera off. So again, feel free to use the chat function at the end. If we have time, we will open up so people can ask live questions. The reason that we are holding this event today, that we invited Mayor Walsh and Superintendent Cassellius is to join this, what we call the town hall, in the spirit of really opening up communication between public officials and our community. We really wanted to first appreciate the tireless work of the mayor and the superintendent and all the city departments who have really kept our city together in keeping people connected and keeping information flowing and keeping us thriving and surviving and leading us into the next phase of this out of this pandemic. And we also wanted to provide an opportunity for you as school and as city leaders to connect directly and share directly with ESOL students, with adults in ESL classes, just to bring your message of safety and recovery and hope to these immigrants and their families. We also want to provide an opportunity for adult ESL students to share their challenges and their concerns and their questions. And we want for everyone to hear how ESL classes right now are really providing a lifeline to immigrants. They're providing information, they're assisting parents as they support their children's learning at home, and helping to access food and healthcare, cash assistance, unemployment and reemployment resources. So a little bit about how we're going to run today's call. As soon as I'm done, we're going to have a small panel of students from a couple different programs that are just going to share their experience. It'll be informal question and answer format. And Franklin Peralta from English for New Bostonians is going to lead that discussion. And then we'll open up for we'll welcome Mayor Walsh and Superintendent Cassellius to join us and give some remarks. And then we have a question and answer period. And actually we've gotten questions from ESL programs and students all across the city, and we'll have the students in the panel help lead us through that question and answer piece. And then we'll close, and we do have some resources to share from the Mayor's Office for Immigrant Advancement, as well as from Boston Public Schools. So I just wanted to give everyone a little bit of background on what's been going on with ESL classes over the last 3 months. We at EMB, English for New Bostonians, have been supporting 20 programs, and again, that's not all that are on today's call, but 20 programs in the city, helping those providers to pivot to offer distance learning. We've been providing remote training and technical assistance on using Zoom and WhatsApp and other appropriate platforms, and helping teachers to really do the remote teaching and keeping students engaged. And it goes way beyond, as any teacher on this call will tell you, it's way beyond just getting on to Zoom. It's keeping students having a high quality class, and we're so pleased to we've jumped in on classes to see how they're going, and they're going really well, and we're so happy to see that. We've also been leveraging some partnerships with Tech Goes Home and the city itself, as well as some funders to get out Chromebooks and tablets and Zoom accounts so that people could keep learning. We've also been running remote classes in addition to the community-based classes that you'll hear from. We have been we've been running remote English classes for restaurant workers who first were employed and then they were unemployed, and now they've been little by little being called back to work. So restaurant workers from Tony C's and Temescal in the Seaport. So those classes have been running remotely with the workers at home. And again, we're happy to see that they're starting to go back to work, but we've been really trying to put as much resources as we can into supporting those workers who've been so hardest hit by the pandemic.
Claudia, in the chat, we have the students asking us to slow down a bit.
Will do.
Thank you.
Yes, so all 42 programs, 42 classes across the city have continued to run, and students are, most students have been able to attend. The content has been somewhat different, more on social, emotional health and well-being. And ESL programs have really taken on a more robust role in helping students to connect to food pantries and groceries and unemployment and reemployment, cash assistance, testing sites, immigration assistance, grief counseling, and really doing all that they always do in keeping communities together. And which is why I've been saying that ESL classes have really been a lifeline to immigrant communities over these last 3 months. There's a couple programs that we have found, a couple program models that we have found that have been really incredibly helpful over the last, in this period. One is and we're going to hear from, this is why we selected a couple students from these programs. One is English Innovations, which is a blend of English and digital literacy. And all the students from the start had tablets at home, and they also have volunteers working with them in their class. So these students in the English Innovations class have been running on WhatsApp for 3 months. And they've used Zoom too, but mostly on WhatsApp, which is nothing short of incredible. Another program model which we wanted to highlight is our ESL for parents and caregivers. These classes it's part of an ENB initiative started around 7 or 8 years ago. And these classes help immigrant parents to learn English and support their children's success in school. Again, more than ever, these classes have been helping parents to facilitate working with the school system, speaking up on behalf of their children, helping with homework, and being their children's teacher at home, and which is just taken on a whole new level of significance. There are 5 sites and 8 classes. So we also run, EMB also supports a host of ESL Pathways programs that are assisting students to navigate the path to employment and in some cases, and now in toward re-employment, as well as further education and citizenship. So that's just a little background on what ESL classes have looked like, particularly during the pandemic period. I want to turn it over now to Franklin Peralta, who's going to lead us through the student panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claudia. Again, my name is Franklin Peralta. I'm the English Works campaign organizer at English for New Bostonians. Thank you so much, Mayor Walsh and Dr. Cassellius for joining us today. And thank you to each and all of you for joining this important conversation. A show of the importance of this conversation is that we have reached the 100 participants limit on our Zoom account. So to the ESOL teachers, if your students are texting you, trying to get into the call, please redirect them to the live event on Facebook at the English for New Bostonians Facebook page. Today we are talking to 2 adult English language learners representing more than 1,000 students that EMB serves every year. So no pressure for the 2 of you. First, we have Laura Aleman. Laura is a student at the ESOL for Parents class at the Boston Center for Youth and Family at Blackstone Community Center in the South End. Laura is a medical doctor. She practiced medicine in Honduras. She has 2 sons. One attends the full inclusion program at Quincy School, and the other is a student at Roxbury Prep. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Franklin. Thanks for having me.
We also are joined by Teresa Contreras, an English innovation student at Maverick Landing Community Services in East Boston. Teresa has a marketing and business international relation background in her home country of Mexico. Hi, Teresa.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here.
Great, thank you so much to both of you, and let's get started immediately. Laura, can you tell us about yourself and about your family?
Yes, I'm from Honduras. I have been in Boston for 7 years, and I am the 3rd daughter of my parents. I am wife of a lovely husband. I am mom of 2 boys. My boys are my blessing from God, and they are Dylan and Liam. Dylan is 12 years old. He goes to Roxbury Prep Charter School. He's in 7th grade. Liam is 7 years old. He is in 1st grade. Liam goes to Quincy School, and he is very special needs kid. He is on ventilator machine to breathe. He is confined to wheelchair, and he needs to go with nurse at school and stay with him all the time. And my husband is supporting me. I can't work outside at home right now. He is supporting the family. He is he's working in a frugal furniture store. And 5 years ago, I started taking bakery class, and right now I am making cakes from home for family and friends. And I'm dreaming with my own bakery on one day. You never know. Nathan.
Thank you, Laura. That shows the resilience of our community and how we adapt to serve our families no matter what. Teresa, what about you? Please tell us about yourself and your background.
Of course, I'm from Mexico. My family isn't there. It's just my mom and two brothers. So when I was there, I started working when I was 16 years old in a restaurant franchise. And first as a general employee, and then I got promoted a few times. First to a floor manager in charge of marketing, and then to marketing assistant for 6 restaurants, and then to a marketing coordinator of the state. And I was also studying at the university international business. And I have to say it was hard to do both of them at the same time, as my job was very demanding and very absorbing, so I didn't have much time left to study. And my older brother was living here in Boston at the time, so I decided to come here, looking to better life and to better opportunities. And so I changed my classes to an online platform, and so I could keep studying here. And I did finish already. I got my degree on international business, and I start looking to study English as soon as I get here. I'm currently living on East Boston, and I had took a few classes before, and I just really, really appreciate all these programs. I feel I have learned a lot. Just trying to keep improving my English, because I feel that being far from your country and from your family and the people you love, you really have to make it worth it and give your best in that foreign country. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Teresa. So much experience already in the workforce. We will be asking you what are your next steps. But first of all, let me go back to Laura. Laura, as we said early, you are in one of the parents' English classes that EMB supports. Can you tell us how the online schooling has been for your children, and how has the class helped you to manage this with your kids?
Yes, for Liam, very good. Liam from Quincy School, but either my husband and I have to help him the entire time. He has 2 live Zoom classes every day in the whole week. So we had to work together to help Liam and stay with him on my bed during the classes. For Dylan is, remember, he's 7th grade, he's 12, he is a smart boy, he's in a charter school, and luckily he has been able to work independently. But really, we don't know what it to continue in the fall. And especially so bad for Liam, because he has to stay all day on my bed. We don't have space here. He is using a power chair in the school because we don't have a space for the power chair at home. So it's really bad for Liam to stay at home for so long. About the class helping me a lot. In general, right now I feel more confident to call the doctor office and make appointments, and I can call the school and speak with the teacher, with therapists, with everybody, and I can call the company to make monthly orders for medical equipment and supplies for my son Liam. And learning English makes me happier and more and easier my life. And the other thing, the class helping me a lot, because right now I have my own Chromebook to be connected with everybody and to be updates and to find online resources for me and my family, like food pantry, etc. The class gave me many ideas how to do with my family, with my kids at home, and they give me really good ideas how to write poems, for example, for Mother's Day, how to do family activities during this hard time, and it has really relaxed me. Like English class relaxed me because Sundays is the only time I take for me. And the other thing is I can continue practice English and doing grammar book and to be in touch with my classmates. And this is very important because if I can be in touch with my classmates and not feel so alone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough situation, making worse with the pandemic, but it's great to hear that English classes are helping you navigate this difficult situation. My team is telling me that we are running out of time, so Teresa, I'm going to combine the two questions for you, and with that we will be closing this part with your answers. As we said, you are part of a new promising model called English Innovation, where half the classes are supposed to happen face-to-face, half on students on time. If you can tell us a little bit more about how that model works, and also if you can tell us what are your next steps now that you just finished the class and you feel more comfortable with your English. What's next for you and your new home, the city of Boston?
Of course. I think it has been great to be in this class. We had the opportunity to be present on the school for 2 weeks, and then we had to move to the online form. And I think the teacher really make it work, and we had help with these tutors. And we were working through WhatsApp, which I think is an app that most of us knew already, but we also use it, Google Classroom and Zoom. And the teacher was just sending us like these videos when he was explaining us the class, like if we were in the classroom. And then we have these small groups with a tutor where we can ask questions and they help us during all the exercises. So that worked really great. And we also have all this help from the school during the pandemic with resources. We got computers, we got help with food, and they also help us not just only teaching us English, but how to get a bank account if we need, how to get legal advice, how to prepare for interviews. I think that was really valuable for me, really helpful that we have like pretend interview and we had to do a curriculum and prepare for it. Give those tips and feedbacks about, and I really feel way more confident. And I think now I'm just looking for a new class, more advanced more class that I could take to keep improving my English and take into a more professional level, and to be able to find a job about my career on international business, which is my goal.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And you definitely get there now that you feel more confident with your English and you've expanded your network. Thank you, you did an excellent job. With that, I'm gonna pass it back to Claudia.
Thank you so much, Franklin and Laura and Teresa. I know where to go for my next cake, and also for the next person to help the restaurants come back with some communications work from Teresa. And wishing you both well. And I know we'll have you back, but right now I wanted to bring in Mayor Walsh. Thank you so much for listening, Mayor. And most importantly, really thank you for leading the city of Boston through through this pandemic. We're starting to, I believe, get to the other side, most recently of leading our city through what's been a very even more difficult and painful period following the killing of a Black man in Minnesota and our city's response to that, the civil discourse and protests around that. And we thank you for your leadership. So I wanted to turn it over to you. Thank you again for coming back. I know you've been with ENB many times before. We welcome you and are so happy to have you here today.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Claudia. It's an honor to be here today. It's great to see all of you. I want to thank my team, Dr. Brenda Cassellius, who you're going to hear from in a little while. She's an amazing leader here in Boston in our schools, and I want to thank her. Our Office of Immigrant Advancement, Yusufi Valet. Thank you, Yusufi, and Yusufi is an incredible resource for our immigrant community. Trin Wynn, our Office of Workforce Development. Trin's been with me for a long time, but she has been working for the city for a long time prior to working with me. She's worked at the Housing Authority. Will Morales is on here. Will runs our Boston Center for Youth and Families, and I want to thank Will for being on here today. I want to give a special shout out to Franklin. You did a really nice job of managing or running the conversation. To Laura and Teresa, thank you so much for sharing your stories. Teresa and Laura, your English is amazing, so great job and congratulations. I can only speak one language. I can understand a second language, which is Gaelic, my parents' language, and I can speak a little bit of it. So anytime that I was in trouble, I knew I was in trouble because I understood that. So I want to thank you for sharing your stories today. I know this is a very difficult time, especially for our immigrant community. Over half of you on this call are caregivers and of your children. You have been trying to balance responsibilities and do everything you can during this difficult time, and it certainly has been difficult. I want to commend you for staying dedicated to your English classes during this crisis. A lot of people would have just kind of maybe stopped going now because of all of the coronavirus, and obviously a lot of the unrest in the last couple of days, but you didn't. So I want to thank you for that. English for New Bostonians opens a pathway to education and good jobs. I'm proud to say that I've supported English for New Bostonians long before I was a mayor, back when I was a state representative. And in the city, I know I've supported this program since the very beginning. English for New Bostonians was spearheaded by the Office of Immigrant Advancement back in 2001 in collaboration with the Office of Workforce Development and other agencies and foundations. And we know that English skills can be life-changing for workers, for business owners and future business owners in our community. Most of you already understand the importance of this. As a city, it's really important for us that we create and support opportunities for immigrants to advance their own careers. And that work continues throughout this coronavirus pandemic. We have reorientated many of our existing resources to meet the needs during this crisis. We've had to make adjustments so that we could do that. Our Office of Workforce Development recently just issued emergency grants to community organizations that are serving unique needs in Boston's workers during the COVID-19. I want to thank them for that. These funds are going to support remote learning for English language learners, retraining, hospitality, and restaurant industry workers who lost their job due to the pandemic. And certainly job training and job placement is the work we're doing before COVID, and we're going to continue to do after COVID. The coronavirus continues to be one of the greatest challenges that our city has ever faced, and we want to make sure that our immigrant communities know which services are available to support them during these certainly uncertain times. And most services are available to everyone, regardless of your immigration status. Meal sites, pandemic, EBT, and COVID-related healthcare. They're also not affected. They don't affect public charge. Know that you have rights as tenants and workers, and if anyone has any questions, you can call the mayor's office at 311, the mayor's helpline. Our Office of Immigrant Advancement is also still holding the immigration clinics during the coronavirus with phone consultations with attorneys, or you can email Moya at immigrantadvancement@boston.gov. So we want you to know that we still are doing a lot of work here in the city. Our priority from day one of this crisis is making sure that all residents have access to just the basic needs. While the schools are closed and throughout this public health emergency, we have youth and adult meal sites serving thousands, tens of thousands of meals every day, 5 days a week. We've provided internet Wi-Fi hotspots, supports for thousands of families, and Chromebooks for kids, remote learning. I know that Teresa, you talked about, I think it was Teresa. Oh no, it was Laura talking about Chromebooks. So it's really important. We're making information known in 11 different languages. If you have any questions, you can contact 311. Or if you know somebody that needs to be connected to a translator, something that's really important. We also have created new resources to help residents who are struggling financially during this difficult time. We created the Boston Resiliency Fund. We raised over $30 million so far to give out grants to organizations that support immigrant communities, and we're going to continue to do that. If you look in the chat, if you don't know what the chat is, on the top of your computer, there's a little box that says chat. Just punch in that. There's some good information here. We created a small business relief fund for our small businesses, a renter relief fund for renters who lost their incomes and they're not eligible for unemployment benefits. We're screening right now for a second round of applications. We're also starting to reopen the city, and we want you to know that we're here to support you. We want to make sure everyone feels safe as their industries reopen. Our small business office, if you're a small business, you can tap into our Boston Reopening Fund or reach out to our small business office just for some support and see what's available for you out there. Our Office of Women's Advancement is holding a series of focus groups for parents with children under the age of 5 years old as part of the conversation on reopening. Reopening is going to be a very comprehensive process that requires patience and caution. And I want to make it clear, Boston will only advance to the next phase of reopening if we feel the public health data tells us to do so. I want to end by thanking all of you about the ongoing call for racial justice in our city and our country. What we're seeing right now is honestly people having their voices being heard. We're seeing free speech and democracy happening in Boston, in almost every single city in America as well. We have to recognize the root of the anger. It's an understandable response to centuries of oppression. It's part of a history that's rooted in hatred and violence. The coronavirus pandemic and the protests have certainly shined a light on some of the most enduring problems in our society. And here in Boston, we're not going to tolerate racism or discrimination of any kind. As we stand together, we're going to continue to as a city. I want protesters and everyone to know that I am listening, and that it's time that that this time needs to be different. And I take this responsibility very seriously. We also have the census coming up, and we're asking everyone. The census is a direct increase to community power. It impacts our daily lives and will for the next 10 years. Many of our Boston communities are at risk of being undercounted. We need to complete an accurate assessment of who lives in our city. The census funding provides healthcare, education, public education, food, nutrition, affordable housing, low income, and it's safe to take the census. There's no questions on immigration status, and we're asking everyone to do that, and we're asking people to respond. If you go to 2020 Census online, that's my2020census.gov, or over the phone or by mail, you can respond to the census. There's 13 different languages that's there, and I want to just do that. I just want to come back real quickly about the unrest, because I know that there's a lot of immigrants on the phone, and you weren't here for 400 years ago, and your ancestors weren't here 400 years ago. And the impacts of slavery, this country, and then racism and what followed, never really fully dealt with that. And the Black community in Boston is really hurting. And if you're trying to understand what the community is going through, the way that I explain it to Irish people is the history of the Irish people. There was a revolution in 1916 in Ireland. And in 1931, the British government and Ireland came up with an understanding of creating what is modern day Ireland. And prior to that, it was a history of oppression by the British government, and different countries used to conquer Ireland. And a lot of people still have feelings in Ireland about the British government. And I have cousins that are English, first cousins that are English. And it's important for us to understand the history, not only of our nationalities, but of this country. And the history that I like to talk about, and we all like to hear, is that history of the American dream, where two people can come from another country, meet in Boston, Massachusetts, get married, have 2 kids, and one of their sons becomes the mayor of the city of Boston. That's the American dream that we all like to kind of look at. But there's another side to America too, that it's not so much a dream. And I think it's important for us to understand that. So I just want to thank everyone. I want to thank you for what you do. I want to thank you for fighting to make your life better for you and your family. I want to thank you for your commitment to learning English. You're looking at a guy who went to college after high school, a guy who dropped out of college, a guy that went back to college and got my degree when in my 40s. And it was hard. It was hard trying to work and balance life and go to school at the same time. But it's a gratifying feeling today to know that I did that. And to all of you, I know that many of you probably quit this class in your head a million times, because I can tell you I quit college a million times driving to school. But it's important for us to continue to move forward. So to all of you, all the students on this call, and I'm calling you students because you're young and you're vibrant. I want to say keep at it, and congratulations. To all the supports and the teachers and the counselors and everyone on this call that offers supports, I want to thank you too. Because if you didn't do the work you did, and you do every day, I should say, many of us wouldn't know what to do. So I want to thank you as well. And with that, I will stop talking and turn it back over to the moderator, Claudia.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Thank you so much for your message, and it's very heartwarming. I think all would agree on this call. It's good to have you with us. I want to now welcome Superintendent Dr. Brenda Cassellius, who is joined the city of Boston last summer, and what a first year it's been. We are so happy to have you here. We know that you have been so focused on families and English learners in your time, and I know you will continue to keep that focused. We're so grateful to you for leading us through what is a very difficult time. We know there are so many different levels of concerns for students and families. So I want to welcome you. I want to just flag one more time, Maria Harris, the director of Boston Public Schools Adult Education, is with us here on the call. And I know that she joins us in welcoming you with her adult ed program, and many of her students are here on the call as well. So thank you, Dr. Cassellius.
Thank you, Claudia, for having me, and thank you, Mayor, for picking me to lead Boston Public Schools. It's been an honor, and I'm humbled to be here with all of you today. I'll try to speak slowly so that you can all understand what I'm saying. I first want to say thank you to you, Claudia and Franklin, for inviting me, and to all the teachers here, and Maria for her leadership. We've met a couple times, and I was just very impressed with the work that she does with our adult learners, and she knows my excitement for adult learning, because you win twice when parents are engaged and when they have the skills to provide for their families and to provide for their children. It is just better for children overall. So I can't thank everybody on this call for really what they do for their children and for their families. It is often very, very difficult when you don't speak the dominant language in the community, to understand and to navigate a new community. And so I'm here now in Boston. I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And so coming here, was a very new experience for me. I know the mayor said that he's been here in Boston, and I know he said he only speaks one language, but I think he also speaks Dorchester. So that accent is just really nice. So thank you to Teresa and Laura for your beautiful stories. And I'm very, very excited about your young people who are in our schools and the work that we can do with them in our ESL programs, as well as some of our special education programs to support our students. This time of remote learning has been very challenging for us, as it has been for our families, in trying to create environments, and school situations at home, and trying to connect with teachers and navigate new technologies. I put in the chat box the helpline and some tutorials for families who speak multiple languages to kind of help with that. But accessing information, I think, is a really difficult challenge for us at the Boston Public Schools as we begin to really try to reach our families in a different way that we haven't had to do before through technology. And that presents its own challenge. And not to mention that so many of our families are experiencing either joblessness or homelessness or some sort of struggle with food insecurity. I'm very proud of our team here at Boston Public Schools, who on day one had 17 different food distribution sites open for our families to be able to take care of their immediate food needs, so that families had what they needed for sustenance and nutrition. We today hit a really big mark. I haven't even told the mayor yet. We served over 800,000 meals. And so that's very, very exciting. And over 200,000 of those have been delivered to families with students who have special needs. And so we're just very proud of that work that we've been doing. We also are ramping up for summer school. We'll have special programming for our students who have EL services. And so I want to make sure that information is out there so you can call that helpline. We will be sending texts, we will be sending emails, and we will be making phone calls and working through teachers who have been working with the students to make sure parents know how to sign up for our summer programs. So we're really, really excited about this opportunity, because we believe that that's going to help us make sure that kids are caught up and ready for the next school year. Opening up school this fall is going to be extremely challenging for us. And so right now we are working through that with our city partners and with our state partners to ensure that students will be safe and that the staff coming back will be safe, and that we've prepared for them to come back to school and to learn. It will be very, very different. The current guidance allows only for 10 students to be in a classroom with 2 adults at this time. So that makes for a really difficult kind of scheduling for us. So we're trying to think through that, not to mention the protective equipment, masks that we would need for students, and then the social distancing that we would need to do in terms of the size and ways that our classrooms are put together. So we're thinking through all of that. We should be having some parent stakeholder engagement meetings over the next several weeks. So we'd love to have you involved. We will make sure that you know the information for how to be involved in those conversations. And we'll be providing information through the media, through ethnic media as well, and make sure that we can partner with our community-based organizations to get that word out, which is going to be really, really important, so parents are informed and understand what we're going to need in terms of partnering for the reopening of school. Just wanted to also note that we have also been working with housing. And I know the mayor's team has just been doing great work to be able to provide vouchers for families who are at risk of displacement. And so as of last week, we had 167 families who had vouchers. And so this initiative of the mayor's has really been one that has been absolutely essential for some of our families. I mean, there's been times when I've just picked up the phone and called the mayor and said, you know, so-and-so had her electricity turned off, or we weren't able, you know, a tree had fallen on, in the big storm, had fallen on someone's home, and the landlord wouldn't fix it and kicked them out. And I called up the mayor's team and they went out and fixed it. So, I mean, that's how much he cares, that every single person gets that kind of attention. And it was just really heartwarming to me to be part of the team to help get people what they need. I also want to just mention the Office of English Learners. We're looking for a new leader for our Office of English Learners. I want to thank Faye Harp for stepping up and being in that role and helping us, as well as Eileen De Los Reyes, who stepped in for a short period, came out of retirement to help us during that time, and Andrea Zayas, who leads that work now as Chief Academic Officer, as we do a national search for that position. It's a very important position for us. So if you know people who would like to apply, we encourage everybody to apply and to stretch out, because we really, really need a highly qualified person in that position to help us with our bilingual education and to really address the needs of our EL learners to make sure that they're getting everything that they need. We've also launched, and I put in the chat as well, some resources for learning resources for your children. So please take a look at that, specific to EL learners and library. And we're working with our local library to get library cards, digital library cards out to all of our students. And that will be very, very exciting work in the future, right there in their digital backpack when they come back to school. So lots of good work going on in the Boston Public Schools, but also lots still to do as we begin to look at what we have. So I'm anxious to learn from all of you and to hear what you think we should be doing for your children and also for families. I always say that it's not just children that we're educating. We are really working with whole families, and it's families that support children, and it's adults who create the conditions in which children succeed. And so I thank all of you for everything that you're doing and for your attention to your own education, because that is a really good role model for your own children. And so I'm going to stop there and take some questions so that we still have time for questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Cassellius. Again, so nice to hear from you. And I know that everyone here on the call really appreciates your taking the time and the way that you've been thinking through it, thinking through the response and also the future. And I think we all recognize how very difficult this, this situation is, and that great uncertainty. And if we can think of anything that we would have to imagine, that we would have, any of us would have to manage and multiply that times 55,000, we know what a challenging piece that is. And we know that so many educators have their own families at home and really doing their educators on this call and educators in the K-12 system who have families at home. And so, we really appreciate all that you're doing, all that you and your team. And we do look forward to working with the Office of English Learners. We have in the past and can look forward to continuing to do that. So yes, we do have some questions. We had some questions for the mayor. I know that he had to jump off because he has a press conference coming up in 9 minutes, but we do have some questions for you as well, Dr. Cassellius. We had a bunch of questions come in from programs and students prior to this call in preparation. Laura, would you like to ask any of those that you see at this time about kind of the reopening process and supports for families.
Yes, especially, yeah, definitely you say we are working in reopen, right, for next year. So it's very important for, especially for the parents, to know very soon the answer or have an answer, because we need to work and arrange to take care or care after school. You know, many parents are working, or many parents have many jobs. So it's very important to know if you really think the school will be open in fall or next year.
Yeah, it's a really hard question, right? Currently, we are not able to go back to school buildings. Although yesterday we did receive some guidance from the state around special education. And so we are still going through all of that, and we'll have some updates for our parents shortly on that when we announce summer school, but we're still in the process of looking at those guidance. But going this fall will be really, really challenging. And so we have a lot of boxes to check off before that happens in terms of the safety of our students and the cost of what that is going to be, and just the overall logistics of it. So I know that parents are very anxious and want answers soon. But as you can imagine, there's just a lot of different moving parts, and we just don't quite have that recommendation ready yet.
Okay, and another question is from student at NOAA, and they say, how will learning loss be dealt with going into the new school year?
How will learning what?
Learning loss.
Oh, learning loss. Yeah.
Yes.
So we are assessing students' learning right now, and trying to better understand how students are doing with their learning. And so we have about 60% of our elementary students who have done a formative assessment, and we're still waiting on the grades at the secondary from the secondary students' teachers, who maybe have been given an incomplete, but they then will be able to do summer school. And so we're hoping that summer school will be a big boost, because students will have a lot of one-to-one and attention from their teachers, and also traditional summer school done remotely. They'll have another teacher who will do a lot of support. So we have about 15,000 students right now who have been given what's called a success plan. And that is where we are writing into plans, individual plans for students, supports that we think need to be in place for their learning, and additional curriculum or additional time that we think students are going to need in order to bring them up to grade level prior to school start. And we'll be
Okay.
we'll really be working with parents to make sure that they attend summer school.
Okay,
Thank
you. I
you.
have another question. What lessons regarding remote learning have been learned in the past few months?
Well, the first one is that we needed to have master schedules. And so we put the master schedules in place on May 4th, so that students didn't have duplicated classes from one teacher to the next teacher. We also learned lessons in that we really should have had some data systems to collect this. Obviously, we weren't a one-to-one school, meaning not every student had a computer. Not every teacher was trained in how to do virtual classes and remote learning. I myself had no experience with Zoom prior to this. And so I think that one of the lessons is the data capture, so that we can learn about how we're doing things well and where we have to improve. And so it's been a real struggle for us in terms of how fast we closed. Then we pushed to get the computers out. We've delivered over 32,000 computers. But then the data system to collect when students are online so that we can tell if they're actually learning or not. So that was a lesson learned. If we had been able to schedule students right away in our SIS system, I think our student information system, I think it would have been easier for us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you, Dr. Cassellius. I wanted to, we did have many more questions. I wanted to maybe just flag for you, there were a number of questions about just, ongoing support for adult programs as they support their children, support for individuals as well as their families. And I think ESL programs, ESL teachers, students raising the concerns around the fact that this is all going to be so resource intensive. It already is and will continue to be resource intensive going into the fall. And so, as one program raised, if we come back and like what you're saying, if we need to only have half the students in our program, wait lists will only increase for ESL programs. And we also need to think about making sure that every student in ESL programs, like your K-12 students, have devices. And so I think that was something that, folks from many programs wanted to raise for the mayor and for you and for other city officials. And we certainly understand that there are so many concerns that you're trying to take into account, but we wanted to make sure that that was registered. I think we have one more minute, and in that minute, I really wanted to thank everyone so much for their participation. Again, we are recording, and we have the chat, and there are there's some questions in there. There are also resources. I wanted to bring back a list of some resources, just put on the screen. Giovanni, if you might share the resources from the Mayor's Office for Immigrant Advancement, COVID-19 resources, as well as Boston Public Schools COVID-19 resources, and the Boston Public Schools ongoing website, We Dream Together, which is specifically for immigrant families, and the Family Helpline. So once again, thank you. I wish you all well in finishing up your classes this spring, and we look forward to doing this again soon. Be safe and be healthy. Thank you.